Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. We are getting off the Bruce train, but he will come up as he often does. But we are talking pop culture today, an expansion, and discussing probably a little bit of bourbon. So, Carl, welcome to the podcast.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, tell us a little about yourself.
Born and raised in Indiana and a big geek, went to Indiana University, Eagle Scout. Love the outdoors, but always find myself in a room like this.
Yeah, I was gonna say that that sounds a little bit more like I have a picture of we were on a vacation in Colorado and we were in this beautiful cabin and there was a picture of me on the couch with this beautiful window behind me of this scenery and I've got a book on like just spending my time, and every once in a while I would like, okay, fine, I'll go outside and read. So yeah.
Excellent.
um yeah, so I always like to start at the beginning. We're going to talk a little bit about it. We are promoting. um Carl is part of the team that has put on a couple of conventions and they are expanding. So we're going to get into that in a little bit, but I always like to start at the beginning. So talk to me. And normally I would ask, what kind of music did your family listen to? Because this is a music podcast, but you can still talk about that if you want. But I want to know, growing up, were you in a family of readers, pop culture? And how about convention going?
Yeah. Grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I'm quite a bit younger than the rest of my family. So I was an oops after the fact. So my parents are,
A bonus child.
yeah, they're almost 40-ish, I believe. But so I grew up with jazz and big band and the Benny Goodman and Wes Montgomery and uh, just great, truly golden oldies now. I mean, when I was growing up, they were still calling it oldies, but it's
Sure.
truly oldies now. Rock Around the Clock, and that was what I grew up with. But yes, my family is very much into pop culture. So I'm old enough to have actually been to Star Wars in the theater in '77. I was probably it was probably '78 by the time I got to go see it, but um, it was out for so long. But so I grew up enjoying movie soundtracks. So I collected movie soundtracks as I was growing up and well into college. So I often say that my favorite type of music has no words in it. And but I listen to lots of things. You couldn't avoid Bruce, Mellencamp. You couldn't avoid those great rock artists from when I was growing up, because rock was in its heyday when as I was growing up. You likely too, or you wouldn't have a
Yeah.
podcast like this. But
Yeah.
so music has been foundational for me, in that it ties, when I hear something, it ties back to a pop culture reference for me. So like the movie soundtrack. So if I hear the Imperial March from John Williams and Star Wars, it takes me immediately to me watching the movie and experiencing it with my family and all that stuff. So but I also, if I'm on road trips, those oldies. I'll listen to the Wes Montgomerys and the Sing Sing Sings by Benny Goodman, and so it's there's my music style is very eclectic.
What year did you graduate high school?
91.
Okay. 91?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm significantly older than you. I graduated high school in 77.
Okay.
So I do remember going to see Star Wars at, in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and not understanding what I mean, just like,
Well, no one did.
I've never seen anything like this.
It was the first true blockbuster, and
Yeah,
nobody had any concept of it because it had never happened before.
yeah,
There have been big movies,
yeah,
not global cultural phenomenons.
yeah. Like I remember going to see Jaws, and was a great movie. And I remember Rocky being huge,
Yeah,
right? Like, yeah,
absolutely.
but yeah, it
Still
was,
is
and
with the
yeah,
Creed
and
movies. Yeah.
I grew up on comic books. I tell this story often, Carl, and so listener, jump ahead because you've heard this story multiple times. My grandmother ran a post exchange at an army base, which is kind of like a Target,
Sure. Yeah.
Walmart. And I would go to work with her early in the morning, and I would go to the spinner rack, grab all the comics I want. She would rip the cover off, give me the comics, and then she could give the cover to her salesman, and they would give her credit because it was damaged.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and so I never had covers of my comic books. So that is my earliest pop culture reference. Obviously, I actually can remember the 66 Batman. So I was about 7 or 8. So I can do that. But I grew up reading Isaac Asimov, right? I just adored Isaac Asimov, those collections of short stories, and felt like he was your best friend because he did all those great introductions to all the short stories and everything. And so seeing something like Star Wars on the big screen, you're just and I was one of those people, right, where early on. Right now, people brag about how many times they've seen Bruce live, but back in 77, 78, you would brag about how many times you'd seen Star Wars in the theater.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, can you remember your first, swim into pop culture? Was it Star Wars in 78?
No, it was Star Trek actually. So that was predates me a little bit, but that was the
Hmm.
late 60s. So the original Star Trek, that was a big family favorite of ours. So I got to see it in reruns, but it was new to me as a kid and fell in love with Star Trek. So the books that I read when I was a kid that were outside of school assigned work were Star Trek and Star Wars books. Aldous Huxley, which is a British author. So I guess I was heavily into sci-fi when I was a kid. I still am. I shouldn't say that I'm not now. It took me till I was an adult to read Dune. It's a much heavier book. But my favorite growing up was A Wrinkle in Time, which is a light fantasy science fiction world that she created. But I don't know how many school book reports I wrote on that book because it was no one else was writing it, so I just kept reusing my own book reports over the years. That was great. So that was what we collected. So I collected Star Trek books mostly because they hadn't really started writing off-universe Star Wars books yet until mostly the late 80s or 90s at that point. So when I was a kid, it was Star Trek books because they were writing those like candy. And so
Yes.
yeah, that's what I grew up reading. Was definitely Star Trek, and that has fallen all the way through to my adult life. So love Star Trek, Stargate, Star Wars, Battlestar, Dune. All those universes are just fantastic. So
Yeah. So don't know what you're talking about.
yep, yep.
For those of you who aren't watching this on video, I have a Star Trek communicator on my desk I keep. Yeah, I remember reading the James Blish adaptions, right? And then, yes, you're right. We're talking about late 80s, early 90s. The trade paperbacks just came out. There were paperback Star Trek, and then there was Next Generation, and Next Generation was the first time um we had just we had an old TV, right? And we had a stereo system, and someone said that if you took your TV and connect it to your stereo system that you could hear the sound through your stereo. Now, this is way before Dolby surround sound, anything. And so I specifically went to Radio Shack because I knew Next Generation was going to premiere. I was living Dallas at the time. And so we had to listen, and you would hear the hum of the engine in the background and everything. And I still, when I'm doing my biography, I would say, Jesse will pick DC over Marvel, Superman over Batman, Star Trek over Star Wars. David Tennant is his favorite doctor, and Martha is his favorite companion. And when I'm at
Those are all great choices.
When I'm at a work conference, they go, "What the hell is he talking about?" And it isn't that I don't love Star Wars. It's just Star Trek was, my dad loved Star Trek. And it's so, yeah, I always go back to that as my core first thing. So I had sent you this in advance, but I saw you on LinkedIn, and to pull back the curtain a little bit, you guys are expanding your universe. You've been very successful doing Indy PopCon. Am I getting the name right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And so now you're going to expand to Louisville. And very nicely, you guys sent out to people and saying, "Hey, does anyone want to have someone as a guest promote?" And I said, "Absolutely. I'm always open to this." So I got your LinkedIn, and you have had a career change, my friend.
Yeah, very
Talk
much so.
to me a little bit about that.
Well, so I graduated from Indiana University with a business degree in computer information systems, and I've been a computer geek probably because of Star Trek since the beginning of time.
Sure.
I had a Commodore VIC-20 when I was growing up, and I actually learned how to type way before other people knew how to type. Or back then we called it keyboarding; wasn't even called typing. So I learned the programming language, and pretty young, but I've never been, and I'm not still a programmer in that regard. I can read code. And I can troubleshoot code, but I can't write it from scratch because I just haven't done that in life. So yeah, been a consultant, been in industries from finance to banking to pharmaceuticals. I've been in just about every industry with as a business analyst and data analyst, and all sorts of things. So I'm a data nerd at heart, not the character from Star Trek, but actual numbers. I'm also a fan of Brent Spiner, but so that was my world. And then in 2012 we met. To take one further step back, because we haven't touched on it yet, my biggest geekness is tabletop gaming. So whether that's card games or board games or role-playing games, some miniature games, that is, when I was a kid, I was making it like the Game of Life, which it has a track that you roll your car along. As a kid, I was creating just handwritten board games that I would make my family play. In 2003, a large event called Gen Con moved from Milwaukee to Indianapolis, and that was my first pop culture convention, is when Gen Con came to Indianapolis. And that was the last time I was an attendee because I started volunteering for him the very next year, and learned a lot. I learned a lot about how that convention runs, and it's for lack of a better word, Gen Con is huge. It is easily one of the largest conventions of any kind in the United States every year. They don't bill it that way because they'll sell out, so they don't need more attendees particularly. But if they'll get 250,000 turnstile over the course of a 4-day weekend, which is just enormous. They take over the entire core of downtown Indianapolis, every hotel, meeting room, the entire convention center, the street. They're just everywhere. So I was very fortunate enough to volunteer / work for them for many years. And then that led up to 2012. We pitched to them, me and a friend of mine, to hold a smaller version of Gen Con, but 6 months out. So the gaming community, the tabletop gaming community, really looks forward to Gen Con every year. And we wanted it twice a year, essentially. So we pitched to them to have a second event, partially sponsored by them. But they were busy with Lucasfilm at the time, because they were running the Star Wars conventions at the time as well, and they just didn't have the bandwidth for us. So met with over lunch a pair of guys that wanted to start their own comic book convention, their own Comic-Con. And over the course of that pizza lunch, we kind of merged the two ideas and came up with PopCon. So we're not strictly a comic book convention, we're not strictly a tabletop convention, but we're everything pop culture, from music and art and comics and anime and sci-fi and fantasy, cosplay. We're the full spectrum of pop culture that we try and do now twice a year over the course of 3 days in both cities. So it's just really a culmination of, I guess, my life that it came to be. It was not meant to be a job. It was supposed to be a pastime. It was supposed to just be fun, and it was a lot of work. So even all the people that we're helping, it's just an insane amount of work to put on an event like PopCon. And my head was too big for my britches, thinking that I knew too much from Gen Con. But boy, that first year did we learn how much we didn't know. We do now. I would consider myself an industry expert now. But back in 2014, which was our first event, we got away with things, but didn't lose any money. So that's kind of what hooked us. So we didn't lose money. And it was a huge and successful event, and we didn't look back. We tripled our attendance in our second year, and it's just been going gangbusters ever since.
What is one of the things that you've learned over the years that you were surprised that, and I guess everything you learn is a surprise, but is there one or two things that you go, wow, I would not have thought of this?
It's funny. That's a great question. So our industry is very tight-lipped, very hold things close to the chest, but we're not. So we're the redheaded stepchildren. I can answer that question for hours, because I'm not afraid of telling people exactly how we do things, because I truly believe that primarily you just won't want to do it. Yeah. So there are a lot of things. So when you're first starting out an event like ours, you have no credible clout with any celebrities or celebrity agents. So our first year was a lot of convincing people that what we were building was something that they wanted to attach to. And we have gotten a very good reputation over the years from that initial trust in us from back in 2014, and that's very nice. We've become good working partners with the agents and all the celebrities that we've brought in. So that's one big chunk that was very different than what we had learned in conventions prior to PopCon. But then there's the mundane stuff, hotel contracting, airfare booking. It's all difficult when it's just super time consuming. The incredible amount of graphic design goes into an event like ours. It's overwhelming. So you have to put in all the celebrities that you bring out, which is dozens, You're creating individual graphics for them from things that they're not necessarily providing you. So you're having to scour the internet for graphics. Then you have to strip out the backgrounds, and then you're plugging it into your own designs. And then you do it again for all the banners, the actual physical vinyl banners. And then you're doing it again for all the badge work. So all the hanging badges that we give out, the people can consider those collectibles now. So we have to be very good to our attendees that they're getting something for that badge. At other times where other events are just going backwards to wristbands, which makes it just it's upsetting because they're paying too much for a wristband. But there's just so much, there's so many things, the volunteer management, the facility relations, so working with the convention centers, working with the city, working with the local media. There's just so many hubs and spokes and things that are just all happening simultaneously that it's your first time doing it, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, I've gone to a few conventions. One of my favorites is before I got this job, is going to Dragon Con, Labor Day weekend.
I had a feeling that's the one you're going to mention. Yeah.
Yeah. So my good friend Tom Zoller had gone to Comic-Con, which is what everyone thinks of, right? California Comic-Con. Yep. We've got all these massive, Hollywood people. And then, he went to Dragon Con for the first time, and he said, at Comic-Con, people are drinking to dull the pain. At Dragon Con, they're drinking because they're having fun. Right. In these different cultures. If you could summarize your culture, what is y'all's culture like?
It's more of a family reunion event. So
ooh, I like that.
We've got kids now. So we're going to our 10-year anniversary here in Indianapolis. We've got kids that started going when they were 7 or 8, and now they're graduating from high school, and they're still coming back every year. We've got we get attendees from every state and several countries that fly in or drive in. Indianapolis and Louisville are fortunately very easy to get to.
Yes.
So we have people coming in that they're treating it like a friend vacation, and they use PopCon as the excuse to get together every year. And that's the environment that we're really fostering. So you mentioned San Diego Comic-Con, the only true Comic-Con. They're backed by all the studios. So when you see a big celebrity there, they're being either contractually obligated to go to Comic-Con in San Diego, or they're promoting something. It's like a 3-day long Tonight Show, and all the movie trailers come out, and the studios use it because it's right in their own backyard. Dragon Con, excellent example. It's not my type of event, but I have tons of friends that pack up and drive to Atlanta every year from here in Indianapolis because they are big into cosplay. So that's when you're dressing up as your favorite character of whatever genre of book, TV show, movie. And they'll go down there and they enjoy the party of it. So Dragon Con, for those that don't know, is really 4 hotels all connected. And you just walk from one hotel to the other through a tiny little sky tube, huge hotels.
Oh, and there's actually 5 or 6, all downtown Atlanta. And
I'm just talking about the 3 main.
Yes, exactly. And
there are too many people to fit into 3 hotels. But.
And they are 5 different conventions all going on at the same time.
Yep, they call them tracks. Yeah,
yes, and
absolutely.
And there are people that will go to the gaming convention that will have no interaction at all with someone on the Star Trek track, right, or the fantasy track, and it is an amazing group of people doing it. And it is, it, I love how, though, the idea of you doing this kind of family reunion, because there is a little bit of that with Dragon Con, right? That people go every year and they meet friends and they do things. And it is a little bit of Mardi Gras. It is also, as my friend Tom said, it's the only, and he goes to, like, a dozen conventions a year at least, probably 20. He says, it's the only one I feel bad like I'm not cosplaying because
True.
it's so big at Dragon
Yeah,
Con.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always, people always ask that haven't been to PopCon, they say, do I have to dress up? I was like, no.
Yeah.
You're picturing the cosplayers in your head because those 5% of the attendees are dressed up and they stick out like a sore thumb. But 95% of the people that show up to these events outside of Dragon Con are
Yes.
not in cosplay.
Well, no,
So,
and once again, I am not criticizing the media. I understand taking a shot of you and I in our Star Trek t-shirt or in a PopCon, polo shirt does not make a good picture on the newspaper or your website
it doesn't.
versus a a dozen Harley Quinns is a much better picture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fight every year. I love our photographers and our videographers, but I have to remind them every year that not every picture needs to be of a cosplayer. I
Right.
encourage them to get shots of people that are just having fun.
Yes.
Just simple shots of people having fun, because it's that you're looking at the Harley Quinns, but right next to them are these this mom and dad with their kids just having a blast doing VR or tabletop gaming or something.
Yes.
And it's just right next to it. So just point your camera
Exactly.
just 5
Yeah.
feet over.
So I want to get to why Louisville, and so if I don't get back to that, remind me. But one of the things that is a common feedback I hear, and this is no matter where you're going to Disneyland, going to Disney World, going to Salesforce, Dreamforce,
Yep.
which is as far away from a comic convention as you can, but it is that it's overwhelming. There's too much. I didn't really have a good time. So I have advice that I share to people, but I'm curious, as someone who does this as a living, what is the advice you give to people that are attending any kind of pop culture or community thing for one of the first few times?
Yep. So the first set of advice I give is wear good pair of shoes. So I always start there, because you're going to be standing or walking on concrete for hours, even if you're only there for a day. And if you happen to be there for multiple days, do not wear the same pair of shoes the next day. Switch your shoes. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two is go in, get your badge, get your wristband, get whatever it is, and then walk around. Get a lay of the land. Conventions like PopCon are very large. It's practically a quarter of a mile from one end to the other. It's huge. And just get the lay of the land. Find the vendor hall, usually in the center of everything. Find the panel rooms, find the film festival room for us, find where the celebrities are, find where photo ops are going to be when you're getting your picture taken with the celebrities. Just walk around before you actually stop at anything. So take the first half an hour and just do a loop, get the lay of the land. Once you do that, then I would look at the schedule and plan out a little bit of your day, and then expect not to meet all those goals. So don't get frustrated that you want to do this panel at 3 and then you were running to do something at 4, but you don't want to do, you find out that it's not feasible to go from one to the other back to back. Don't get frustrated with the event because we're packing too much fun stuff in. Just find those fun things that you can do and then move to the next. Those are the two biggest things that I would suggest for anybody going that's never been to an event like PopCon before. is wear good shoes and get the lay of the land before you jump in head first.
Great advice. And I'm going to kind of your second one, I'll expand, is I think absolutely make your plans, right? But focus on what you're doing and not what you're missing.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
There's too many choices.
We're a 3-day event for a reason. So
Yeah.
you can get away with a good chunk at PopCon if you're there in one day, but you're not going to be able to do it all. You just can't do it.
Right.
It's Disney World. It's Disney World. So you can't go to Magic Kingdom and Epcot in the same day and get the full effect of both of them.
Yeah.
And you just have to set your expectations. So if there are certain things that you absolutely want to do, get those done first.
Yes.
So if you really want to meet Patrick Warburton in August in Indy at PopCon, do that first. Just get it done. Go stand in the line, get it done, and meet him, because then you're not worrying the rest of the day about, oh, we still need to do this. Oh, we still need to do this. Just go get that one thing done, or go get those few things done.
Yeah.
But then go walk around, sit down, play test a board game. Just learn something new. Try on the VR goggles, because a lot of people still haven't tried that yet. Sit down and watch a couple short films in our film festival. Play laser tag. We've got state-of-the-art laser tag. Go sign your kids up and yourself and go play laser tag, because it's not like it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Sit down and play a video game with your kids, because they're doing it all day, all year long. Use that as an opportunity to see how other families are interacting with their kids, doing the things that the kids love, because 9 times out of 10, that parent is going to end up having more fun than the kids. They have to let themselves go to do it.
I totally agree, Carl. And the other thing is, don't be shy. Two, some of my funnest experiences, no matter what convention I've gone to, is where I've sat down to break a meal or at a bar, and I'm a Diet Coke drinker. I am not an alcohol consumer, but I'm tired. I will sit at a bar, and I have had like a 20-minute conversation with the bartender who sees it all. Right? They're there in the middle of this convention, and they're telling stories and talking. I've sat down with people and just share stories and things. And it's truly some of the best moments that you can have, because you've connected to someone and they are telling a story and experience, and they're sharing the joy that they ran into Mark Shepard and he was telling them why Doctor Who is one of the best, series ever. So yeah, I think that is excellent advice. And to mix this into Bruce Springsteen, currently, he's touring and his set list is pretty static. He's changing it 2 or 3 songs during the tour, and this is unusual for him. Usually he really mix it up. And we were talking about, some people are like bird watchers. They have a list of songs they want to get to stamp. And some people in conventions have that idea of, I need to get all these signatures. I need to get this pictures with, I need to get this, and I need to make sure I make this panel. And that is a perfectly fine way to enjoy a show. But I would just give you a suggestion. Maybe do 3/4 of that to start out with, and to leave you some breathing room to stumble into a panel you didn't think you were going to listen to and go, oh my God, I've never heard about this book series or this thing, and enjoy that.
Yeah, 100%. It's the beauty and the curse of PopCon is that we're covering all aspects of pop culture.
Yeah.
So if I would go in blind to PopCon, I'm a Star Trek fan, a Star Wars fan, like we've discussed, and I will find those things.
Yes.
But I might be walking by this amazing art that is based on anime or some fantasy series that I'm unfamiliar with, or a tabletop RPG that I haven't heard of that's not Dungeons and Dragons. Heaven forbid it's not Dungeons and Dragons. That's where you need to stop. You need to stop, go talk to the artist, go talk to that vendor, learn about their world, because that's the world that they live in, and it's part of their livelihood. So spending a little bit of time in the vendor hall and just going up and down the aisles and seeing all the cool things is important to those people. And we strive at PopCon to make sure that they're as interactive as possible. So for risk of sounding immodest, most events that are like ours feel like a flea market when they're going through vendor halls. We push against that very hard. We want every 10 feet, we want something cool to do or to see, and not just walk by and say, oh, there's another one of those. We work really hard on that every year.
And I think I also think one of what's really beautiful is I have been to conventions where, you know, I don't want to buy an autographed picture, but I want to tell this quote unquote celebrity how much I enjoy their work.
Yep.
And there are shows that are like, nope, we're here to sell stuff. And there's others that go, no. I mean, yes, if the line is a dozen long, we may push you on a little bit quicker, but that doesn't mean it's not okay for you to go and tell someone you're a fan of, because that's part of the joy of that, right?
It is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So we don't yet, I should say, we don't yet bring out the Chris Evans of the world. We go for what I consider the working actors, the people whose not insignificant portion of their annual income comes from meeting their fans.
Right.
And those are some of the best interactions you will ever have with people that you like in The Mandalorian or Walking Dead, or that you're meeting the people who enjoy they enjoy it too. They're working geeks, and they just happen to be acting in some of their own favorite worlds, their own franchises. And it's really a treat to just go up and shake their hand or get a selfie with them, or there's lots of different opportunities that are not an autograph that can really set your time with them aside to where you'll remember it for a very long time.
Yes, absolutely. So you've obviously been very successful in Indianapolis. Why did you decide to expand, and why Louisville?
Twofold. One, no events we can't be stagnant, so I'll put it that way.
Right.
A single event is not a long-term success story.
Right.
There's very few single events turn into a long-term success story. So we recognize in the industry that our peers have multiple events. So that was step one, is breaking through the idea that, hey, I think we can do this now. So Louisville, albeit probably too close to Indianapolis geographically, fell into our lap because they do not have a large pop culture event in Louisville anymore. And turning down the opportunity to bring PopCon to a large audience like Louisville, we couldn't pass up.
Okay.
And the city worked with us very quickly, and they gave us a date that worked very well for us very quickly. And we were lucky to get June 16th to 18th next month, right there at the Kentucky Exhibition Center, which is going to be a very large space for us there as well. And it's just it's a great facility, lots of parking, which is not unique. I mean, which is unique unique, to have parking that's that accessible. The only catch is for those that are out of town, the hotel situation isn't as convenient as Indianapolis, but Indianapolis, we are spoiled with the convention center because they love when I say this, but I feel like a commercial for the city of Indianapolis every time. But Indianapolis has more connected hotel rooms to the convention center than any other city in the country.
Mhm.
And there are more restaurants within walking distance of the convention center than any other convention center in the country. It's just super convenient, and the city rolls out the red carpet to anybody that comes to Indianapolis. And it's truly a wonderful experience, and we're spoiled ourselves to be from Indianapolis. But Louisville, we're growing to love very quickly too. You've mentioned the Bourbon Trail. I have not yet gotten to experience that, but I do not believe that I'm going to be able to avoid it. I actually do drink bourbon and whiskey. I haven't partaken yet, but not a big drinker. Because you're only listening to this on a podcast, but all I'm doing is drinking water all day.
Yeah.
I don't even sugar it up with the Diet Coke that you mentioned.
Yeah. So I am a non-drinker too, but and there is a Bruce connection. Back in 2012, he was not touring anywhere close to Dallas. And in 2011, my father had died, and he was buried in Fort Knox, Kentucky, right there at Radcliffe, just a little south of Louisville, at a veteran cemetery. And so my wife and I were wanting to do a vacation together. We had not gone without the kid, without another couple in a long time. And so we drove from Dallas, went to Louisville, did part of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, saw my father, went up to Cleveland, saw a Bruce show, came back down, did the other part of the Bourbon Trail, went back home. We called it our Bruce and Bourbon Tour. And even as a non-drinker, I am fascinated by the art and science of bourbon, because there are these legal laws, but there's also a lot of creativity in it.
Absolutely.
And so I think, and there is a great culture of bourbon bars there in Louisville. So I do think that you probably won't do it this year, but I could see in 2 or 3 years, like Dragon Con will have a night at the ballpark, where there's an event where you can go see the Braves. I could see in 2 or 3 years, you guys will do, hey, let's do a bourbon field trip as one of your events.
Yeah. Coincidentally, I believe their minor league baseball team, and I apologize, Louisville, it's escaping me the name of the team, but they're having their Star Wars night either our Friday or Saturday.
Perfect.
Minor league, and we've got a couple of Star Wars people coming out, so we'll see what kind of coordination we can pull there. But there's a lot of fun things that happen throughout the cities that coincidentally tie in together, and we're getting to that point here in Indianapolis for sure.
Yeah, if they get there a little bit earlier, also the Louisville Slugger Museum is in Louisville, which is a wonderful day. So Louisville is a perfect city to make a weekend out of it. Not only the pop culture, but if you come early or stay late, you've got, Churchill Downs, you've got the Louisville Slugger Museum, you've got all the different bourbon distilleries. So yeah, I think it's a perfect choice for a city. And even as I'm talking, I was looking to see, man, can I figure out a way to be off? I need to go do this. So yeah, this is great. Is there a couple of events coming up? Well, first off, give the official dates and times and how to get information about not only Louisville, but Indy.
Yep. So information's easy. It's just popcon.us. So popcon.us. That'll get you to both events. The Louisville event is June 16th to the 18th at the Kentucky Exhibition Center. Indianapolis PopCon Indy is August 25th to the 27th at the Indiana Convention Center, which is right downtown in Indianapolis. And lots of fun, both events. They're both 3-day events. We're adding some pretty significant evening programming to both events this year, and we're just trying to make everything fresh, new every year, and it's a treat, and it's difficult, but it's fun.
Well, and I want to stress what you said. This is a great family event. this is an event that you can bring the whole family, whether it's youngsters, teenagers, grandparents and grandkids. There will be plenty to do. There will be plenty of things to see and watch, to interact. I love the idea of playing different games and playing this. There is certainly, there will be artists there that are fantastic.
Yes.
And so, I can't urge people to check it out enough if they're going to be in the area or want to get away. I think this is going to be wonderful, and I'm excited about it, and I wish you a lot of success.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So, Carl, what should I have asked you that I didn't?
No, you asked some good questions that most people don't. So I think you've already gotten the things, the insight.
Good. So I was going to do this after we record, but I was just sitting here thinking. So there are some people from Europe that have created a Bruce Springsteen card game. And I will send you a link to it. They are not trying to sell it. They are it's free.
It's print and play, sure.
Yeah. And you basically it's picture Springsteen Uno.
Sure.
The idea is become the boss, and you have to it's a card game. And so to become the winner, you have to have so many songs, so many band members, so many experiences, and so many gigs. And each of them are different stars. And so you have to give this X amount of, you got to have so many band members, so many experiences. The idea, right, to become the boss, you've got to write songs, you've got to have gigs, you've got to have experiences, and you have to have band members. So I will send you a link to it, and I would love for you to check it out. And because it is kind of a fun little niche game, but also they make sure you don't have to know Bruce to do it, because it's really just this Uno. Sure. So that's great. All right, I'm going to let you go, but I have to ask you the Mary question. So for those of you who are going on this, checking out this wonderful pop culture, and especially if you're part of Carl's team and you're checking to see how he did, you're probably wondering, what the hell is the Mary question? Jay Armstrong is an honors English teacher that is recently retired. But when he was teaching his high school seniors, he would take 2 days and they would print out the song Thunder Road, written by Bruce Springsteen. They would go through the lyrics, they would present, look at the imagery, look at the word choices. And at the end of the 2 days, he would ask his class, does Mary get in the car? So Carl, that is your question, and you did the homework. I appreciate it. Your guess, does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
So I'm sure that I heard it when I was younger, but earlier today was the first time that I listened to that song in years. So I pulled up a YouTube video, and it had the lyrics right alongside it. So I studied it as best I could, because I didn't get 2 days. I didn't take 2 days. I could have, because I had this question for a while. But I do believe that she did. From again, only watching through once with the lyrics, it did not sound like either of them wanted to be where they were. So there was no reason not to get in that car.
I think that is a great answer. Just to give you a little insight, about 60% say yes, 40% say no. And there is no right answer, because Bruce, I think, deliberately left it vague when he wrote it.
Yeah, there's no doubt there.
Yeah.
But there's, you could go, it's 1986. It's a very different time than it is now. It would, if that were written in 2023, would she have gotten in the car? My answer would probably be very different.
Yes, I think that's well said. All right, Carl, this was so much fun. I hope you had a good time.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much.
And thank you. I hope I asked a little different questions. It's always fun to visit and get off the Bruce train and share a little bit different. Once again, pitch the website.
It's just popcon.us, popcon.us. Easy.
All right, go there. They are. I've looked at. There's some great guests. I'm going. I would just. I would love to talk to from Gilmore Girls. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Scott
So
Patterson.
yeah, Scott Patterson, and I think he's played in a band. So I
Yeah,
would end up talking
I believe that is true. Yes.
yeah, so I would end up talking music to him.
Sure.
But thank you, Carl. Hey, listeners, go check this out. Go check out the website. If you're going to be in the area, please take your family there and you'll have a great weekend. For now, be safe, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.